Caroline, what is the sort of message that you would like people to get and that you work to get? Not a party-free message, of course, I mean, but an objective message about what is happening in the defence of the realm right now.
I think for us it's incredibly important to get a balanced sense of what the forces are doing, and that has to be across the board. So it has to be what's happening on land, on air and on sea, and get across some of the difficulties that people face economically at a time that things are being cut back, where people understand the fiscal situation is very difficult, but they still have a job to do that is hugely important. And we've seen most recently in Libya, but still in Afghanistan as well, the contribution of the forces there, what they've been able to do, but also some of the dangers, some of the difficulties and some of the hardships that they faced on that. And it's our job as broadcasters to get that across to the audience who can't go and see for themselves what's happening on board a ship or what's happening up in the air. You have to bring that story to them and tell the story of what's happening. For example, in the pieces that we've done most recently, the sailors, those on board, say HMS Liverpool, coming back into port, what have they experienced? What was it like for them? What did they do and did they succeed?
How much of the hearing, we all know that as a specialist correspondent you know your stuff, but you've got to convince the planning desks and the news editors that it's worth doing. How does that play in the BBC newsroom? How hard is that, or easy?
It varies hugely on the story. If the story is hot, you know it's hot because it's going to be the lead, you will get the time you want for it. But news is very, very competitive, so each specialist correspondent is pushing their subject, is saying, you know, put us on the news, put defence on the news, put security on the news, or the environment, or business, or whatever it is. So you have to fight for that airtime, and it can be very, very hard. And sometimes, you know, if it's a day that war is being declared, or that your forces are being sent to Libya, whatever it is, that will get on, that will push its way on automatically. It's when you get middling stories that are often the more human interest ones, where you talk about the personal experiences of, say, those on board a ship, that sometimes you have to fight harder to try to get those on. You don't always succeed necessarily, but there is, I think, a huge interest in knowing about things that perhaps are not as public as they might be or as they could be. So when we went on to HMS Astute, for example, I think the negotiations for us going on board and filming on board HMS Astute, brand new nuclear submarine, took an awfully long time. That took months, if not years, and I was so delighted when it succeeded because it's one of those pieces that we did where people afterwards were saying, wow, that was, I'd never seen on board a nuclear submarine. What was it like? And people are fascinated to know, and about the lives of those who go off to sea. What makes them do it, what makes people tick, what is it like for them, what's it like for their families back on shore. And also I think people are interested at this stage as well, having seen the Strategic Defence Review, what happens next, what happens for the forces, and again, what is that like for them and for their families.
Finally, you've done a lot of work in the broadcast medium, across the piece as they say. Set me up, how rewarding is this compared to the other tasks you've done? How would you rate it?
What, being defence correspondent?
Absolutely.
Hugely. The best job that I've ever done. I couldn't believe when I got it because it was one of those jobs that I always had an interest in. I remember going to interview the person who did this job something like 23 years ago at the BBC, who was very kind to allow me to interview him for the project that I was doing. And I went to talk to Rusi and other people and saw all these eminent people talking about this fascinating subject and thought that is something I would love to do one day. And so when I finally got to do it 4 years ago, I was over the moon. I was overwhelmed, and it's been fantastically interesting. And it is a subject that is also hugely important. You have the sense that it matters. It was wonderful being a foreign correspondent, and I also believe that that mattered, reporting from Moscow or Paris or Berlin or Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever. But I think defence has the edge because it's something that people in the UK really do care about. They care about the forces, they care about what happens, and they care about those people. So being able and allowed and having the privilege of going off, meeting them, being with them, reporting on them, it is an honour, a privilege.
It's clearly worked for you, it's worked for us. You're a winner of the Desmond Wettern Award. Many congratulations.